The agencies in Washington who are permanent power factions while presidents come and go over elected terms, such as the CIA, NSA and other intelligence agencies, are now rumored to be staging a soft coup against the US president. These intelligence agencies are well documented for their long reach of control that includes implementing regime change in nations worldwide, Libya, Iraq and Afghanistan to name a few, engage in propaganda, exert power to commit war crimes and organize death squads. According to The Intercept's Glenn Greenwald, take the deep state one step further, and you start to understand the intelligence community's barely their accountability to democracy and democratic procedure. Comparably, the permanent members of these agencies are not elected to power, as is done with the president. The 17 intelligence organizations hold more power than the president in the form of surveillance, foreign policy agenda, counterterrorism and financial intelligence, preventing the President Trump in this case from enacting any policies. This is the deep state coup, or a soft coup, as some note it. Bill Kristol, a political analyst and commentator of several networks, and founder of the Weekly Standard, noted on a tweet from February 15, 2017, obviously strongly prefer normal democratic and constitutional politics, but if it comes to it, prefer the deep state to the Trump state. While Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer said in a recent live interview on MSNBC, "Let me tell you, you take on the intelligence community, they have 6 ways from Sunday at getting back at you. So, even for a practical, supposedly, hard-nosed businessman, he's Trump, being really dumb to do this." Intelligence agencies operate in secret. It is their prescribed agenda for national security, comprising of 17 distinct organizations. With the CIA as a front-runner, they generally fall into the Congress or Department of Defense, DoD, categories. The annual budget has steadily increased over the years from 2005 at $44 billion just for the CIA, to a current $70.7 billion for both the DoD and National Intelligence Program, NIP. In 2016, the agencies are the CIA, the Defense Intelligence Agency, State Department's Bureau of Intelligence and Research, Foreign Policy Agenda, Air Force Intelligence, the FBI's National Security Branch, Counterterrorism, Army Intelligence and Security Command, Intel for Troops, the Department of Energy, Office of Intelligence and Counterintelligence, Gathering of Foreign Nuclear Weapons Information, Coast Guard Intelligence, Homeland/Maritime Security, the Treasury's Office of Intelligence and Analysis, Terrorism and Financial Intel, the DEA, the Marine Corps Intelligence Activity, the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency, the National Reconnaissance Office, responsible for U.S. spy satellites, the Office of Naval Intelligence, the Department of Homeland Security, the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, ODNI, where everything is collated to be presented to the president. Why a deep state coup? In recent weeks, Trump blamed the intelligence community for withholding information and leaking damaging intel, something the ODNI denied last Wednesday. But with a deep state coup, like any coup, the procedure is to deny everything, creating uncertainty about truth-tellers and muddying the line between the false and reality. Glenn Greenwald sums up the acts of the intelligence community as empowering themselves to enact policy, explaining the intelligence agency's pro-Clinton stance pre-election times to the anti-Trump stance, which leads to the power struggle witnessed between the intelligence community and President Trump today. The CIA and the intelligence community were vehemently in support of Clinton and vehemently opposed to Trump, from the beginning, and the reason was because they liked Hillary Clinton's policies better than they liked Donald Trump's. One of the main priorities of the CIA for the last 5 years has been a proxy war in Syria, designed to achieve regime change with the Assad regime. Hillary Clinton was not only for that, she was critical of Obama for not allowing it to go further, and wanted to impose a no-fly zone in Syria and confront the Russians. Donald Trump took exactly the opposite view. Is the CIA subverting Trump? The Wall Street Journal transcribes agencies as concerned about handing information over to Donald Trump, and thus, are allegedly actively withholding intelligence from the president for the worry of potential intel sharing with Russia. Evidence supporting Trump's close alliance to the Kremlin failed to surface amidst the sobering claims. On the other hand, WSJ makes claims based on anonymous officials with ambiguous claims. The trend, however, to advocate intelligence agencies to engage in a coup, whose track records of historical atrocities is regarded by Greenwald as akin to destroying democracy overnight. Even if you're somebody who believes that both the CIA and the deep state, on the one hand, and the Trump presidency, on the other, are extremely dangerous, there's a huge difference between the two, which is that Trump was democratically elected and is subject to democratic controls, as these courts just demonstrated and as the media is showing, as citizens are proving. But on the other hand, the CIA was elected by nobody. They're barely subject to democratic controls at all. 6 Russian diplomats have died in the last 60 days. As Axios notes, all but one died on foreign soil. Some were shot, while other causes of death are unknown. Note that a few deaths have been labeled heart attacks or brief illnesses. 1. You probably remember Russia's ambassador to Turkey, Andrei Karlov. He was assassinated by a police officer at a photo exhibit in Ankara on December 19. 2. On the same day, another diplomat, Peter Polshikov, was shot dead in his Moscow apartment. The gun was found under the bathroom sink, but the circumstances of the death were under investigation. Polshikov served as a senior figure in the Latin American Department of the Foreign Ministry. 3. Russia's ambassador to the United Nations, Vitaly Churkin, died in New York this past week. Churkin was rushed to the hospital from his office at Russia's UN mission. Initial reports said he suffered a heart attack, and the medical examiner is investigating the death, according to CBS. 4. Russia's ambassador to India, Alexander Katakin, died after a brief illness January 27, which the Hindu said he had been suffering from for a few weeks. 5. Russian consul in Athens, Greece, Andrew Maladin, was found dead in his apartment January 9. A Greek police official said there was no evidence of a break-in, but Maladin lived on a heavily guarded street. The cause of death needed further investigation, per an AFP report. Maladin served during a time of easing relations between Greece and Russia when Greece was increasingly critiqued by the EU and NATO. 6. Ex-KGB chief Oleg Arovinkin, who was suspected of helping draft the Trump dossier, was found dead in the back of his car December 26. According to The Telegraph, Arovinkin also was an aide to former Deputy Prime Minister Igor Sechin, who now heads up state-owned Rosneft. If we go back further than 60 days. 7. On the morning of U.S. Election Day, Russian diplomat Sergei Krivov was found unconscious at the Russian consulate in New York and died on the scene. Initial reports said Krivov fell from the roof and had blunt force injuries, but Russian officials said he died from a heart attack. BuzzFeed reports Krivov may have been a consular duty commander, which would have put him in charge of preventing sabotage or espionage. 8. In November 2015, a senior advisor to Putin, Mikhail Lesin, who was also the founder of the media company RT, was found dead in a Washington hotel room according to the New York Times. The Russian media said it was a heart attack, but the medical examiner said it was blunt force injuries. 9. If you go back a few months prior, in September 2016, Russian President Vladimir Putin's driver was killed too in a freak car accident while driving the Russian president's official black BMW. To add to the insanity, if you include these 3 additional deaths, that's a total of 9 Russian officials that have died over the past 2 years. That WeAreChange.com's Aaron Kessel knows if he notes there could be more. As Kessel explains, it's worth noting that governments, specifically the CIA, have for long periods of time had chemical concoctions that can induce a full systematic shutdown of a person's nervous system and in some cases cause someone's heart to explode. Former CIA employee Mary Embry discusses the infamous heart attack gun and how she was tasked with finding a chemical concoction that would cause a heart attack. The weapon was first made public during the Church Committee hearings in 1975 by former CIA Director William Colby. It was said to be very lethal and untraceable. By using this weapon, a murder is made to look natural while the poison dissolves in hours. It seems highly unlikely and improbable to write off that 6 Russian officials would die in under 60 days in such an influx in various different mysterious ways without a catalyst. And let's not forget RT founder and former Putin aide Mikhail Lesin was found dead in 2015 from a blunt weapon that was originally blamed on a heart attack, so assassination can't be taken off the table and ruled out in any of these cases. Turkey and Russia already accused NATO of a false flag attack killing Karlov, the Russian-Turkish ambassador. NATO also had a dead diplomat. Yves Chandelin mysteriously died of a gunshot wound to the head in his car a week before the death of Karlov. Chandelin was the chief auditor in charge of counter-terrorism funding. Turkey and Russia have the will not to be deceived by this false flag attack, they said. Don't forget that on Christmas Day, a Russian military jet went down over the Black Sea, killing 60 members of the Red Army Choir and 33 others. That just adds to the massive coincidence list. On a final note, former acting director of the U.S. Central Intelligence Agency, CIA, Michael Morell openly conspired to covertly kill Russians and Iranians in Syria in an August 2016 interview with Charlie Rose. While Morell was talking about killing Russian and Iranian soldiers, it is definitely a strange piece to add to this puzzle. Are we witnessing a battle between the deep state and Russia in a spy versus spy plotline, or is this all just a freak coincidence?